for our keynotes, first keynote is Peter Fischer, who is responsible for outdoor sports at the European Union. And I mean, Peter, he tells us he's a passionate cyclist. That's a damn good place to start, and a mountain biker, which is really, really good. But he's really here because he's a coordinator for our sports and has in youth and culture and many linked activities. An player in building sport, the EU. So I'm delighted to welcome Peter. And Peter, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon from Brussels. Thanks for the welcome. Thanks for having me. Yes, I'm indeed a passionate cyclist, so it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon with you. I do have a mountain bike. I'm more a cyclist on dirt tracks or the forest mountain biker that some may be, but still, I'm a mountain biker, so I'm glad to be here. I have a few slides for you to tell you about my work and the work of the European Commission. I do work in the sport unit of the Directorate-General for Education and Culture, Sport and Youth. And in particular, I'm coordinating an expert group on green sport. The slides, please. Right, next. So okay, I think there's go to the next slide, please, and then I think we'll have to go back. There's a mix-up, I believe. Yeah. So first, I wanted to talk about the EU Work Plan for Sport, which is the basis for the work that we do in the Commission and that I do. The EU Work Plan for Sport is a 3-year plan that has identified 3 key areas, which you can see on the screen, including a second one, the socio-economic and environmental dimensions of sport. And as on our to-do list was the creation of 2 Commission experts group, one on green sport and one for the recovery of the sports sector after the COVID-19 pandemic. So now go back 1 slide, please. Yes, so what is it that we do in this expert group? What do these expert groups do? They are chaired by the Commission. They are composed of member state experts. They are civil servants who work in the public sectors and should ideally be experts in the field. So 2 slides down, please. Then what do we do and how do we go about this business? Well, it's very much about best practice exchange, knowledge building, finding out what good practices exist, raise awareness about sustainable practices. And of course, we have regular meetings and take note of the progress that is achieved in those meetings. Next, please. Well, we have, of course, also members of the sport movement represented in those meetings. The first meeting was not open to observers, but the next meeting, which is actually tomorrow, is open to members of the sport movement. That is, if they have a key role in the sector and they are, representing a crucial number of actors, ideally at the European level. And for the outdoor sector, we have, for instance, a member from the European Network of Outdoor Sport. So next, please. What is the main objective of this expert group? Well, it's here in bold. You can see that the task is to come up with a common framework for sustainable sport with shared commitments by all member states, and that should be achieved by the end of 2023. So we are at the beginning of this process. As I said, tomorrow is the second meeting, and in a moment I will show you the 5 key areas which are quite broad, on which the expert group will concentrate. You can see also on the slide that the French EU presidency is considering to have perhaps a council resolution on in the area of a green pact for sport. That is at least a possibility the French are considering, and perhaps the expert group will be able to provide some useful input for that. Next slide, please. Well, as promised, here are the key areas that were identified at our first meeting and which are partially also indicated in the EU work plan for sport. Sport infrastructure in all its dimensions, the construction, the maintenance, but also its impact on the climate or the environment, including biodiversity, etc. Then, of course, the organization of sport events, and not only major sport events. For those, we often have sustainability concepts, but there's many smaller events that are organized, and they may be not as well prepared to deal with issues of sustainability. A third element is innovative cross-sectoral solutions. Well, what is that? There, the idea is to look at all the different areas where there can be solutions or problems, or how can, you know, a negative impact of sport on the climate or biodiversity, nature, be mitigated. And I think this is an area where also the outdoor sport sector is of interest and will be impacted, and good advice will be welcome and hopefully established in that expert group. A fourth element is, of course, the promotion and knowledge sharing to a wider public about sustainable sport practices, sport practitioners and federations, and then, of course, also ideally at grassroots level. And a fifth element is how can the sport movement contribute and cooperate with the European Climate Pact. And there it's all about identifying Climate Pact ambassadors, getting sports organizations to make pledge in a way to make the European Green Deal and this Climate Pact a success. Next, please. That's already the end of my presentation. I have a few links at the end of the presentation. I know I don't have too much time, but I suppose for the sports sector and the mountain bike community in particular, as well as anyone else who's interested in EU funding, here are some useful links that you can take a closer look at. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. And it's, I mean, it's not often we get that overview of kind of everything and the key values in sport. So that's, you know, really encouraging to see. And many people, you know, I don't suppose the EU first institution one thinks of. One thinks of sport, one thinks of all the governing bodies and you. So it's great to get that kind of picture. What we'll do is take those questions in the chat, give you a moment to reflect as an audience.